Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Insights Powered by Barnard. My name is Amanda Dye, and I'm the Director of Advising and Programs at Beyond Barnard, the college's hub for advising and resources around careers, internships, competitive fellowships, and applications to graduate and professional school. It's my privilege to introduce this evening's insights, not only because of the timeliness of the discussion, but also because of its relationship to the work I do at Barnard. As Director of Advising and Programs, I oversee the dedicated and talented team who provide closely tailored individual advising about careers and graduate education to students and alumni. Our team is also responsible for a wide range of programming designed to support the exploration and pursuit of diverse careers. My particular interest in this evening's program stems from the advising I do every day as Barnard's Health Professions Advisor. More than 1/3 of our students major in STEM fields, and an average of 9% of Barnard graduates matriculate into medical school or other health professional schools. I work with inquisitive and compassionate students and alumni seeking to enter clinical professions like medicine, nursing, and counseling. My conversations over the course of the last year have revolved around both the immediate and lasting effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Many advisees have discovered a new or renewed sense of purpose in pursuing health professions as an ultimate act of service, applying advanced science to save lives. And tonight's discussion provides a rare opportunity for our community to hear directly from two extraordinary leaders in science. We are thrilled to welcome our guests, Dr. Albert Bourla and Dr. Kathrin Jansen, whom President Bylock will introduce in just a moment. Before we begin, a few logistical notes. This event is being recorded and will be shared next week. Attendees will not have microphone or camera access during the event. Attendees' voices, likenesses, and images will not be captured by Barnard College. Written submissions of questions may be shared during the Q&A portion of the event. With that in mind, I want to thank everyone who submitted questions in advance. We will do our best to get to as many questions as possible. It's now my pleasure to introduce the 8th president of Barnard, Sian Leah Bylock. President Bylock has led Barnard since 2017, having served for 12 years at the University of Chicago. She is one of the world's leading experts on the cognitive science behind choking under pressure and performance anxiety, with a focus on math and science for women and girls. She is the author of 2 critically acclaimed books, Choke and How the Body Knows Its Mind, and her 2018 TED Talk has been viewed over 2.5 million times. Please join me in welcoming President Bylock.
Thank you, Amanda. It's really just so wonderful to be here tonight, and welcome everyone to our 3rd Insights event of 2021. It's hard to believe that actually in a little over 1 short week, we will be done with our spring semester. And in the course of this academic year, our students, faculty, and staff have really dedicated themselves to coming together to advance what's so special about Barnard, which is truly academic excellence. I've been so impressed by the resilience and optimism of our community, the support they've given one another, and I want to really give a special shout out and thanks tonight to our faculty and staff who've tirelessly worked to really ensure that we are a true living, learning community, whether we're near or far from campus. I'm really grateful to each and every one of you. Later this month, we'll celebrate the class of 2021 in their graduation from Barnard. And although we all wish we could be gathering in one large group at Radio City Music Hall, we will be doing a large virtual event followed by several small in-person events, socially distanced, of course, where students will be able to gather by major with their faculty members and celebrate all they've accomplished. And for students who aren't on campus, they'll be able to do this virtually. Of course, as May approaches, we also look forward to a new evolution at Barnard, which is our summer semester, which allowed students the opportunity this year to take classes across a fall, spring, and summer term. One aspect of our summer semester that I'm incredibly excited about is that we will have our Summer Research Institute in full swing. This is where our students do original research with faculty and professionals across New York City in the medical and scientific fields. And this year we're able to fund and support around 250 students working with a mentor on their research over the summer. Even as more people come back to campus, and we certainly have a lot in and around campus. In fact, around 80% of our students are either living on campus or in the immediate area, living right off campus. But even as our campus opens up more, There are some aspects of this last year in a virtual world that we're really looking forward to continuing, and Insights, powered by Barnard, remains one of our important regular series where we get to hear from really the best and brightest leaders across fields. And tonight, I'm so excited to welcome our guests, Albert Bourla and Kathrin Jansen. Albert, as I think almost everyone on the call knows, is the chairman and chief executive officer at Pfizer, one of the world's leading research and global biopharmaceutical companies. He was born in Thessaloniki, Greece, to a family with deep roots in the city's Sephardic Jewish community. His parents, in fact, were among the few to survive the Holocaust in their city. Albert is a doctor of veterinary medicine and holds a PhD in biotechnology of reproduction from the Veterinary School of Aristotle University. Albert began his career at Pfizer in 1993 and in the Animal Health Science Division and as a technical director of Greece. Over the course of more than 25 years with Pfizer, Albert has held many leadership roles with global scope. He served as group president of Pfizer's global vaccines, oncology, and consumer healthcare business from 2014 to 2016. Then for 2 years, he served as group president of Pfizer Innovative Health, which comprised the consumer healthcare, inflammation and immunology, internal medicine, oncology, rare disease, and vaccines business groups. Notably, he has cultivated a reputation of putting patients first, introducing the slogan in 2017 to show Pfizer's purpose and commitment to serving their patients' needs. Before taking the reins as CEO in January 2019, Albert served as Pfizer's chief operating officer, responsible for overseeing its commercial strategy, manufacturing, and global product development functions. Albert pushed for an aggressive timeline in Pfizer's development of the COVID-19 vaccine. In late July 2020, the company was among the top developers of a potential vaccine in partnership with the German company BioNTech. On December 11th, 2020, the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, authorized the Pfizer vaccine for emergency use in people 16 years of age and older, and it became the first vaccine approved for use against COVID-19. In December 2020, Pfizer and BioNTech agreed to deliver 200 million doses to the US government by July 31st, 2021. And in February of this year, the US exercised its option for an additional 100 million doses of the vaccine, bringing the total to 300 million. In 2020, Albert was ranked as America's top CEO in the pharmaceutical sector by Institutional Investor magazine. He's on the executive committee of the Partnership for New York City, and is a director on multiple boards, Pfizer Inc., the Pfizer Foundation, Pharma, and Catalyst, a global nonprofit organization promoting the advancement of women, and a trustee of the United States Council for International Business. In addition, Albert is a member of the Business Roundtable and Business Council. Just a few weeks ago, the Appeal of Conscience Foundation presented the 2021 Appeal of Conscience Award to Albert for his leadership in helping to heal a world wounded by COVID-19 and for his tireless work in the service of the global community. Finally, and very importantly, Albert is the proud parent of a Barnard student who is member of the class of 2023. It's also my pleasure to introduce Kathrin Jansen, Senior Vice President and Head of Vaccine Research and Development at Pfizer, and a member of Pfizer's Worldwide Research and Development Leadership Team. Kathrin was born in East Germany, though her family left nearly everything they had to depart for West Germany shortly before the construction of the Berlin Wall. She traces her interest in science to early experiences as the daughter of an engineer and as a child who was frequently ill and often fascinated by the medicines that made her feel better. Kathrin received her doctorate in microbiology, biochemistry, and genetics from Philipps Universität in Marburg, Germany. She completed postdoctoral training at Cornell and then joined the Galaxo Institute for Molecular Biology in Geneva, where she focused on basic studies of a receptor believed to be a drug target to treat allergies. Kathrin then spent 12 years at Merck Research Laboratories, where she directed or supported a number of vaccine efforts, including Merck's novel bacterial vaccine program and viral vaccine programs. At Merck, she initiated and led the development of Gardasil, the world's first cervical cancer vaccine. Subsequently, Kathrin served as Senior Vice President at Wyeth Pharmaceuticals and on Wyeth's Research and Development Executive Committee, where she was responsible for vaccine discovery, early development, and clinical testing operations. At Pfizer, Kathrin oversees a fully integrated global vaccines research and development organization with responsibilities ranging from discovery to registration and post-marketing commitments of first-in-class or best-in-class vaccines to prevent or treat diseases of significant unmet medical need. In this role, among many other significant accomplishments, Kathrin oversaw the development of the company's COVID-19 vaccine. Since March 2020, when Pfizer partnered with the German startup BioNTech to develop a vaccine against COVID-19, Kathrin has led a 650-person team night and day on Zoom meetings from her Manhattan apartment. Please join me in welcoming to Barnard our distinguished guests, Albert Bourla and Kathrin Jansen. Oh, welcome to you both. Well, after bios like that, it's so impressive to hear about your background, but really equally so exciting to have you both here with us tonight.
Thank you for having us.
So you both live in or around New York City, which was an early epicenter of the pandemic. I just wanted to start by asking, how have you and your families been coping over the last year? Albert, maybe we'll start with you.
Certainly, as Kathrin, the same is with me. We are immigrants to this country, and so I have only my immediate family here with me, and everybody else basically is overseas. So the first thing that happened is, like everyone else, we couldn't see our beloved relatives, my in-laws, my sister, our nephews, our nieces, our cousins, and that was tough. Now, on the positive thing, I could have surprisingly my kids home for quite a bit of period. I'm not sure if they see it as the positive, likely as the negative from their side, but from my side was like a dream that I had them there. But I couldn't keep them both for long because the independent nature of my daughter drove her to go back to your campus.
We've loved having her. And Kathrin, how have you been doing?
Yeah, it has been very stressful. And also to Albert's point, I actually had planned a vacation with my mom. She always wanted to visit London, and for a variety of reasons, it never really came to happen. And so I had it all planned out, and we were ready to meet in May last year. And of course, then the whole thing fell apart. And so I haven't seen her since. And that's of course is tough, right? So just meet and talk to the person over the phone and by FaceTime. So, and then it was stressful. I mean, in the as you said, I mean, I felt like we were here in the hot zone in New York, getting the full brunt right from the beginning, and experiences and being here close to the hospitals where you just hear the sirens nonstop, day and night, and every time you heard them, okay, somebody was again in distress. So. It was very stressful, but then, of course, there was a job to do, which is to develop the vaccine, and I think that kind of helped to really focus on accomplishing this goal and kind of putting blinders on so that the stress around wasn't really getting then as much to me.
Yeah, so let's turn to the vaccine. And I mean, Albert, I think many of us know the story, but very early on in the pandemic, you challenged your team to develop the vaccine by the fall, an extraordinarily ambitious timeline for something that usually takes years instead of months. And what led you to make that commitment? And did you have really a full sense of the effort it would take to succeed?
Look, what led me were two simple questions. The first was, if not, what? And the answer was devastation. If we wouldn't be able to have a vaccine by fall, then 21 and the fall of 2020 was going to be terrible, terrible years, and I could see that. The second question was, if not us, then who? Because I truly believe that I have the best, Kathrin, to lead the effort, and I truly believe that this Pfizer team has the resources, the expertise, the scientific depth, the infrastructure to be able to do it. So when you answer these questions, then it comes very easily to your mind. You have no option to fail. That's what needs to be done. So then what happens is that you need to believe it, because the other option is, as I said, devastation. And then you need to engage everybody else to believe it as well. And that's how everything started and eventually happily ended.
And Kathrin, I have no doubt that you, were in constant conversation with Albert as you came up with these goals, but how did you motivate your team and with this challenge and get them where they needed to be to believe it themselves?
Yeah, I think the challenge of Albert, just to reminisce a little, of course, first was, how in the world are we going to do this? But Albert mentioned one thing not today, which is actually, he also gave us absolute free rein. And he said, you can have everything that is in my power to give you, just make it happen. And that's a completely different, of course, environment than that we usually work on, right? Because there's always a lot of pull and push for resources, and many different things we have to do in an organization. And so all of a sudden we were faced with a very different environment that gave us all the resources we needed and possibly could think of. And then it was basically just looking at the problem. And I have many years of experience in vaccine R&D, so I have worked on different vaccines with different approaches. And so, you learn as you go through development from the beginning to the end, what matters, what you have to focus on, and what all has to happen to get you to the finish line. And so you have the end result in your visor, and you know how to go there, what to focus on and what to not focus on. And my team, and not just my team, but also the wider Pfizer team, I think they trusted me, they trusted my judgment, they trusted that, whatever I was suggesting, and they trusted my leadership skill and said, well, she has done it before, she probably has a good nose for doing it again. So I think that helped. And of course, as Albert also mentioned, we were all in the same boat. We see the devastation and saw the devastation around us. I mean, there's just fear and exasperation of what was there to come, which motivated everyone to do whatever they needed to do, no matter how long it took and how long the hours were during the day. So we just, all said, we have to get it done. We will get it done. Let's go and do it.
No, I love something that is common in both your answers is this notion around trust, right? Albert giving this challenge and saying, I trust we have the expertise to do it. And I trust, you can have all the resources to do it. And then Kathrin, you talking about your team and them trusting, your ability to lead them. Are there other things? What tips do you both have for engendering that trust in the teams that we lead or the people around us? Is it looking back at experiences and showing that you've done it before? Is it just making sure people know they have free rein? What do you do, Kathrin, to get that trust within your team?
Yeah, I think we had other experiences in the past, and I just give you an example. When I first joined WISE and we were in the late stage development of Prevnar 13, our pneumococcal conjugate vaccine, there was a lot that needed to be addressed. And pretty much when I joined and I looked at the landscape, I realized, how in the world are we going to get this done in this time frame? And so what I did in this, and this is pretty unusual, right? You come into a new place, you don't know the people, you don't know the environment, you just get essentially thrown into cold water. So you look what you can do and what the resources are around you. And I almost commandeered a big portion of my organization and essentially put them onto this program and said, this has to happen. And so I was, with them in the trenches, charging ahead and getting everyone, to come along. and we got it done. And I think what people have learned in this time, and many of those colleagues, this is now many years ago, are still with us. They learned and understood that even I sometimes asked completely, maybe in their mind, what they considered as absolutely ridiculous and outrageous things. But when they saw why we did it, and then also saw the end results of it, I think they learned that I wouldn't ask them unless I had the utter belief and conviction that we can get over the finish line by just, doing what we need to do. And I think that helped us with COVID, with the COVID-19 vaccine development as well.
I mean, it was such a compressed timeline and such an ambitious goal. Albert, were there things you did along the way? What were the keys to success, to keeping the team motivated? What hurdles did you come across? I think we're all interested in sort of looking under the curtain to hear more about what it was like in the trenches for something we're so grateful for.
It was, as you can imagine, very bumpy. There were a lot of challenges and multiple successes that were immediately followed by failures, maybe 3-4 in a day. I remember that if a success was lasting more than 1 hour, then I would say that was a very great experience. So, because before Kathrin would pick up the phone and give us some news that were contradicting the first. And in addition to the fact that was very challenging technically, and was very challenging also in terms of testing human ingenuity and testing possibilities that the human work can open, I think it was very challenging also because it was happening in a very politically charged environment. And it was happening in the middle of a highly polarized election period. And the vaccine became the epicenter of the political debate. And it became even a political statement if you're wearing a mask or not, which of course is ridiculous. And all of that was creating, in addition to a very challenging technically situation, scientifically situation, also politically minefield that you needed to navigate. And I tried to protect the team as much as I could from that. So I was handling that and taking the blow so that they can, behind the scenes, frankly, because the public could see me, but the work was done by Kathrin and her team. They were doing the work. I think that was quite challenging. And of course, people needed to believe. And the fact that the cause was so noble was motivating everyone to work tirelessly to achieve that. And the fact that also the resources were there without the fear of failure, what am I going to do? I think that also opened the creativity of the people, so they were able to do things very differently. You know very quickly that if you ask someone to do something that lasts 10 years in 9 or 8, it's very difficult, but they will do it thinking within the box. If you ask someone to do something that takes 10 years in 9 months, they will think very differently.
Yes.
And I think this is what happened in this case.
I love this idea of creativity, and what you open up. I think what's so interesting in what you said is about being okay with failure. And I think that's something that is, and it's a key to creativity, right? Having failure as being a learning process. And actually that's what got me into science. I heard a Nobel Prize winning biologist. She talked about how almost every experiment she had done had failed. And I thought, oh my God, a career where I can fail all the time. I love this, and it's so interesting, but it sparks creativity. And Kathrin, I'm sure, you as a scientist have had so many failures along the way and failures during this process.
Yeah, part of it is that, we almost like we were building the airplane while we were flying it, right? So everything had to be done in parallel. We had very little experience with the pathogen, with the platform. We had to mobilize colleagues in bioprocess and manufacturing. They had to prepare for multiple approaches, all based on the RNA platform, which is unheard of. Usually we give them one and it's well sorted and already very robust. And here we were really still learning and evaluating multiple candidates in the clinic, and we ran into process issues with some of the candidates. They needed to be fixed. All of a sudden, the integrity of the RNA didn't look like as advertised or wasn't good enough, so we had to figure out what happened. So folks were in parallel looking at many different approaches to fix it. So all the while the program is going, though, we are going, and we're getting ready for the big efficacy study. Everything has to come together. We had assay failures. We couldn't understand why all of a sudden our assay fell apart, right? But it was just built. It was just, developed and discovered. And so we needed to learn important assays that would help to actually characterize our vaccine. And we banged our heads against this. And we had, we had teleconference like literally every hour. What do the data say? Let's try this, let's try this. And then we found the solution, and then we went on. And this happened in parallel on so many different levels. But when you have a motivated team and you are not distracted by anything else, and I always say what was personally a great experience, and I have to thank Albert and his team for it. Really, he took care of the bureaucracy. We spent so much time on what I call bureaucracy normally. He took care of all of this. It was direct decision making. We needed to make a decision. We had a meeting. We met twice a week, or whenever we needed to come together. We presented the situation. We gave our recommendation. We need this. We need that. Do we agree? Yes, we do. Go do it. That is fantastic. No committees, no endless discussions of, should we do this? Should we do that? I mean, it was just fabulous. I mean, from that standpoint, if we could operate like this all the time and take out the bureaucracy, I think lots of, phenomenal things can happen. And because of the stress and the devastation around us, this was great. And Albert said, he took care of the politics. We took care of the science. He kept our backs free from distraction. And, this is, I think, how we succeeded.
Well, can we get rid of a lot of the bureaucracy moving forward, Albert? I mean, one of the things that you talked about, I think, so amazingly is the unprecedented level of cooperation and sharing of information across industry stakeholders as everyone was fighting together. Are there lessons learned about how we'll develop medicines and vaccines moving forward with this collaborative spirit so that we really learn about a systems approach to doing this better?
We have to take care of the bureaucracy. We have to limit it, to eliminate it if possible, because bureaucracy and innovation is like oil and water. They don't mix. So you can try as much as you want. And with all the innovative companies, biotechs, biopharmaceutical, there was an unprecedented, that's true, collaboration. And that contributed significantly also to enhance the reputation of an industry that was not enjoying a high reputation. We were, before the pandemic, at the really bottom of the reputation index. We were below the US government. How can you be below the government in your reputation? It's unbelievable. But we managed to do it. And it was a very unfair characterization, but we were responsible for that. We did a lot of things to lose trust from people in the past. And the reputation comes in drops, but you can lose it in buckets. So we had to collect it drop by drop. And we were, in this pandemic, unfortunately, we did the right things. We all collaborated. No one abused his position. We competed also, and that's a healthy competition, so that I'm sure that our scientists were thinking, I don't want Moderna scientists to be first, and Moderna scientists were thinking, I don't want Pfizer to be first. But that's healthy. What is unhealthy, it is to hide your results so Moderna will not see them and will not advance. And this didn't happen. We published immediately everything that we were finding. The same happened with Moderna, the same happened with everyone, basically, so that the others can see and learn, and so we can progress. And now we are in a situation that something that was considered as miracle has happened. And this is miracle in the square, because as Kathrin said, one thing is to develop it and and discover it and develop it to have the vaccine. The other thing is to produce it in quantities that everybody eventually can have it. That was another miracle that had to happen. And I'm very proud for the way that everybody basically in this industry behaved. I know that everything that we have gained is very fragile. As I said, you can lose it in buckets. We need to earn the trust of people. We need to earn our value proposition to society every day with everything we do. And I hope that everybody will continue behaving in the way that everybody is expecting us to do.
And are there ways to sort of encourage that as an industry? Are you talking about these principles of cooperation moving forward and how to enhance them on other fronts?
Constantly. And also we're speaking also constantly how important it is to make sure that people trust us. And you asked before the question, for example, for trust, right? And your credentials always help, right? So if you have done things that are valuable for society, okay, that's a good thing. But trust comes 25% from the brain and 75% from the heart. Or I don't know, 25% from
I might argue with those proportions, but yes, we get it.
All right, I will say it differently. Trust comes 25 from the right brain and 75 from the left. So, or I think I got right, the left and right. But so it's how you make people feel that it is the most important. And I speak with all the leaders of this industry, and they are all really committed to change that.
Yeah, and I think what you bring up is such an important point. It's a constant thing. You don't just earn the trust and then it's there. You have to constantly reinforce it and remind everyone about it. Yeah, that's so interesting. So since the emergency approval of the vaccine, millions and millions of people have been vaccinated, and it's sped up in recent weeks and months. What do you attribute to that? What contributes to that success? What we've seen, I think, unprecedented vaccine distribution, and along with everything else. How should we think about this? What are give us some insight under the hood into how this happens.
Kathrin?
You mean the quick rollout of the vaccine?
Yes.
I think this is another example of a huge collaboration in this particular case. Of course, making the vaccines internally, making sure that we collaborate with suppliers, for example, that produce some of the raw materials, increasing, again, also built on trust, right? That we work together, we collaborate, we make sure that we can really produce a large number of doses to protect not just the population in the United States, but elsewhere. So this is a huge network of industry collaborators, as well as, of course, also the regulators, because all of this requires intense regulatory interactions that we also had to go through. And then, of course, the distribution network, where we work very closely with the US government to make sure that the doses would actually come to into the arms of people, so to speak. And I think, Albert, you can probably elucidate even more of the just ingenuity of our manufacturing colleagues that just came up with fantastic ways of making sure to distribute the vaccines to the various places that they had to go to.
Yeah, it's just amazing to think about, and on all accounts. I like, thinking, as you talked about, Kathrin, all the different partners and people who had to trust one another, and building multiple sort of airplanes, I guess, at the same time would be an analogy off of what you said. And I think a lot of this comes back to hearing different perspectives, and also really a push on equity, right? And that everyone is at the table and being seen and heard. And I know equity, Albert, is one of Pfizer's core values. And I like how the company states it, that every person deserves to be seen, heard, and cared for. I wonder how how do you promote and embody that value? And now everyone is looking at Pfizer as such a leader. I imagine you really have an opportunity now to push this out even further.
Of course. And first of all, let's start with we needed to make sure that as we are recruiting 46,000 people, to make sure that all minorities are represented in this group. And that is not always easy. Is the norm in those studies, it is that the racial minorities, they are underrepresented in the clinical group. And we took genuinely specific effort to make sure that this will not happen with the study. Because we knew that also people need to see, if we were successful, needed to see that these trials were happening in a population that reflect the population and the composition of our society, and not of the Park Avenue only type of population. And this was already started, that it was so much embedded in our mind that about equity in healthcare that drove that. The other one was how to make sure that the vaccine will reach everyone and not only the rich countries. And for example, now the situation is that almost 2/3 are going to the very rich countries, although the vast majority of the population is on the poor countries. Now, it's not something that we like at all. It happened because when we offered the vaccine, we offered it to all. In May or June, we traveled to all countries and told them that we are going to produce it. Hopefully we'll have it in October, November. And we priced it in a way that reflects equity, which means we selected a price that, by the way, was the price of a meal for the rich countries, the US, for example, the Europe of the world. And then we said equity doesn't mean that you give everything the same. Equity means that you give more to those that they need more. And we price it for the middle income countries, half of this price, and then for the low income countries at cost. And we went to all of them, low income, middle. But people were confused. They didn't know whom to believe and where to place their bets. And some, they placed their bets in vaccines that they were not, unfortunately, successful. And then suddenly, all the others that they had placed their bets on us, we had already delivered, or let's say the quantities that we could produce in the first months were already allocated. What we did on that, again, was that we tried to use the ingenuity to dramatically increase the production. So it's not a question how we allocate it, but it's a question everybody will get. And right now, we more than doubled what we thought we'll do in January. We went public a few weeks ago and we said, this year we will do more than 2.5 billion doses. It's a lot of doses that will help provide those doses to basically everyone. This is the principle of equity. It's not that Pfizer will make money from the excessive doses because they are given at cost, but it is that Pfizer will fulfill the reason of our existence, our purpose. And our purpose is breakthroughs that change patients' lives. It's not breakthroughs that change rich patients' lives.
I love that. It's really inspiring. And Kathrin, with I think Amanda Dye mentioned this at the beginning, with 35% of our recent graduates from Barnard being STEM majors. I wonder if we could take the inspiration that Albert just talked about and channel it a bit to your story and what got you interested in being a scientist. And so we can hear and learn from that as well. And it's so amazing to have such an incredible team at the top of this organization.
Yeah, I was, even as a young child, I was very interested in just in nature, really, in biology. So that was always intriguing me. And you already mentioned earlier, you know, my dad, he was always coming to the rescue when I had my throat infection or whatever. So he was always in charge of getting medication to make me feel better. So I thought, this is cool, you know, really. I mean, this little pill, you know, I can sleep now and I don't cough, and my throat infection clears up. So it was very, you know, impressive to me as a child. And so I knew very early on I wanted to work in this area. So in this interplay between science and medicine. And the other thing that I knew very early, I wanted to work in industry, because that's where those little beautiful pills and potions were produced. So, that when I was, very young, that's how I pictured it. And so then I just sat on this course, and I knew what I wanted. I didn't know exactly how to get there. That would be, false to say. So it's just studying and getting my degrees and looking for opportunities that would allow me to work in industry. And it was even at that time, my parents, when I grew up, they weren't particularly so happy with me about that career path, because they were very concerned about the standing of women in industry and pharmaceutical companies. They had firsthand experiences, and they thought, well, you will have, all the challenges in the world. Don't you really want to do something that's easier? But I was determined, and it was well-meaning advice. But I essentially ignored it and went for what I really thought I wanted to do, and I think it that was the right decision.
I think we all think it was the right decision as well. So that's great. So we have so many questions from our very large audience, and I'm hoping we can turn to some of those now, Albert and Kathrin. We have from alumni, from current students, from parents of students, just some really, some great questions. Maybe we'll start with Kathrin as a question. We have Laura Wolf-Sloven, who's a parent of a class member of 23, and she asked whether the advent of the mRNA technology is going to help Pfizer develop vaccines, especially to combat variants.
Yeah, so that's a very good question, because this virus is a crafty one, SARS-CoV-2. It's an RNA virus, and they have this habit, of course, to accumulate mutations rather quickly. And we have seen that very early in the pandemic, how variants quickly arose and could actually take over whole populations. And so that was very concerning. So of course, first we said, okay, we just have to be on the lookout. We have to make sure that as we develop the vaccine and we study the immune responses, that we always make sure that if variants would arise, that we had a system in place that we could test quickly. Would the vaccine-induced, antibodies actually neutralize the virus? Because that's a major way of testing vaccine-induced immune responses very quickly. So, and then of course, with the success of the vaccine, we now have many important variants all over the world. We have done our tests, so we know that so far the vaccine protection against those variants is solid, but we are all worried about the time when maybe one of those virus variants figures out how to evade our vaccine protection. So we now have built systems in place, and we're doing clinical studies right now that will allow us to create essentially the pathway by which we can very quickly, should we have to, switch from the current vaccine and update a new vaccine. Now, of course, the RNA platform is beautiful for that, because we don't have to change the processes, we don't have to change the formulation. It's relatively a simple engineering feat to just change the sequence of our vaccine antigen, and then we can, once that's done, which we can do very quickly, we can start immediately to produce the variant vaccine should we have to go that way.
That's really interesting. So it sounds like you've learned so much in the last year as well, right? And just about how to do this. So I have a question from Terry Newman, the class of 79, and Albert, Dr. Bourla, this builds upon your question that your comments before about what else Pfizer is doing now to help get the vaccine to countries that are less wealthy than the US and some of our peers, to emerging markets, to countries with limited funds. I imagine that's a big focus right now.
Yeah, it is a very big focus, because I think, first of all, because it's the right thing to do, right? You can't be a global health company and have inequities in the way that you are protecting people. Secondly, even for the rich countries, they need to understand that in pandemics, you are as protected as your neighbor, because this is, if those countries will not receive the protection that the rest of the world, they will be the pool where all the variants will start being preparing. The third is that you realize that it's easier to speak about equity when you don't have to give up something. And those vaccines are produced in US and they are produced in Europe. And there are a lot of negotiations between US authorities or European authorities how much you can export. So to avoid all of that, or to find a solution, as I said before, the real solution is make enough for all. So just invest in infrastructure, invest in supporting the suppliers of raw materials, and use your people's ingenuity to do that in a way that could be, instead of 5 years, 1.5, because this is what it takes to build manufacturing infrastructure. And I'm very confident that the situation will change radically. I think that by this summer, it's not by the end of the year or by next year. I think by this summer, in 2-3 months, we will have enough production so that not only the Americas and the Europe where we produce these vaccines are covered, but the rest of the world, including third world countries, will see meaningful impact in receiving the vaccine. And by the end of the year, I think we'll be able to provide vaccine to the world. As I said, 2.5 billion, and we will shoot even for higher. So I feel that we are going through a test of our humanity and morality right now, but pretty soon, if we do things right, it will pass with flying colors.
Yeah, and I just, as you're talking, I keep on iterating on these ideas of trust and creativity and cooperation that are the essence of all of this, right? And this humility that it's the right thing to do, and it's important. So Helen G., who's the class of 22, has a question for you, Dr. Bourla. Going back to your schooling, she says, most DVMs that I know don't become industry leaders. And so she wanted to know, when you started your veterinary medical education at an undergraduate level or a graduate level, did you think that this is where you were going to end up?
Clearly not. Not because I was studying veterinary science, but clearly not because I was not thinking from my humble beginnings in Greece. It will end up to the top of one of the largest corporations in the world. And I joke many times, which is not a joke, it's reality. When the board announced to me that you are the new CEO, the first thing that came out of my mouth was only in America. Because only in America something like that can happen. It's the country of controversies. It has great things and it has things that needs really to be addressed and changed. So no, I never expected. But you need to know that I'm the third veterinarian that I'm heading a pharmaceutical company right now. And the reason how I end up here, it was that Pfizer had a very big animal health group where we're doing medicines for animals. And when I first joined Pfizer, I joined the company in the animal health group. And this is basically where I grew. 2/3 of my Pfizer career were in the animal health, and 1/3 in human health. I have 10 years, for example, of the 27 in human health. And I think actually it helped me, the fact that I came as an outsider to the human health, to see things differently. And also coming from a much smaller division, when you have to learn the hard way to do things, it became an asset eventually in me to progress.
I love that, to bring in a different perspective, right? This goes with what creativity is all about. So this is a great question for both of you. This question's from Audrey Fain, who's the class of 19, and she says, you're both probably some of the busiest people in the world right now. She wants to know how you prioritize your personal life and relax outside of work. What do you do to take a break?
Yes, what are you doing, Kathrin? Please tell us, because
I tell you what I'm doing. I think my private life is probably playing second fiddle here. I have to say, but I think one of the things that I love to do and that really relaxes me is, I mean, I love to walk and I like to bike, and so now with the weather turning nicer, my husband and I finally got our bikes tuned up again. And so we're zooming around Central Park and elsewhere and challenging ourselves on the hills. He usually wins, I don't. But when I'm really frustrated about something, which I, sometimes get, I realize that then I can muster the energy and I may even beat him on the hills. So that's a good way of relaxing and getting rid of steam that is not particularly productive. So. And then the other thing
I'm impressed, Kathrin, that there is someone that can win you. I have never seen that before, and that should be an experience.
Yeah, well, but you see, I struggle with it, right?
I know you very well.
One of those days I want to be always on top of the hill, but
and I'm sure you will, knowing you again.
And then the other thing is just very briefly, and I don't know whether that necessarily will be relaxing, but we always had rescue dogs, and our dog died last year, and so we are now, for the first time, will actually get a puppy. And while we're very much looking forward to it, but the closer the date comes when we actually can take possession of the puppy, I wonder if that's really adding to relaxation. Or did I just get into trouble, because then it's about housebreaking and house training and all of this. I don't know whether that was a great move, but it definitely will focus, on not just work, but on this little puppy. So, which is probably helpful to take my mind off work for a while, which usually ends up giving me better ideas of how to solve a scientific problem. But that's just
no, as a cognitive scientist, I can tell you there's actually neuroscience research behind that called the incubation effect, that when you step away and think about something else, you actually are more likely to come back and see a new and unusual solution.
Perfect.
It's why you always come up with the best response to your spouse in that fight you had like 10 minutes after, right? That's how it works. So I wanted to just end with a quote, Albert, that you've said. You've said that optimism is fueled by your optimism is fueled by your firm belief that science will win in the case of COVID-19 and other diseases. And I just want to ask you, we have so many members of our audience today, many of whom are in or will be in scientific fields. What can they do to mitigate some of the effects of misinformation out there and improve the public's understanding of science? How should we be thinking about that?
It's a very good question, particularly when it comes to vaccines, because there is a lot of hesitancy right now in the vaccine. And the worst thing that we can do, it is to challenge or shame or ridicule people that they don't believe or they are afraid to take the vaccines. Because either they are misinformed about the science or because they have a fear inside them. And I think it's very important, though, to approach them and engage them. And I think it's very important to explain to them the power of science and how science has changed human history constantly to the positive over the years. And also explain, and this is what I found the most effective way to communicate with those people, that they are very good people, as I said, that to explain them that the decision to vaccinate or not is not going to affect only your life. It's going to affect the life of others. And most likely it's going to affect the lives of the people you love the most, because they are the people that will hug you, will kiss you, and those are and they will be exposed because you are not protected. And speak about this with people in the communities. Everybody should be doing that, not only the educated people. Everybody should be doing and speaking about the power of science.
I think that's a fantastic way to end, that we can all talk about the power of science. And I know that's something that is very close to the heart of all of us at Barnard. So Albert, Kathrin, thank you so much for being with us this evening. We're so grateful for you taking time to do this and for everything you've done in the fight against COVID-19. And I can speak for the whole Barnard community when I say that we're proud to have you as members of the community. Kathrin, you're a member now by virtue of being part of this. And, you know, we're just so in awe and impressed and inspired. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So as we close, I'd like to invite Amanda from Beyond Barnard to come back and just say a few words about what is to come in Insights Powered by Barnard.
Thank you so much, President Bylock, and thank you again to Albert Bourla and Kathrin Jansen for helping us to continue the Insights Powered by Barnard series this semester. We do have more exciting conversations coming in the Insights series as the spring continues. In May, we will be joined by Helene D. Gale, 76, MD, MPH, and President and CEO of the Chicago Community Trust. And in June, we'll welcome Asahi Pompey, CLS, Global Head of Corporate Engagement and President of the Goldman Sachs Foundation. Stay tuned for updates on these dates and speakers, which will be delivered to your inbox. We hope that you'll join us for these conversations as we continue to connect Barnard students, alumni, parents, faculty, and staff to individuals with perspectives on some of the most important issues we're facing right now. We at the college and at Beyond Barnard in particular continue to be grateful for the ongoing support we receive from the alumni community. As we work with students and alumni of all class years, backgrounds, and interests, your generosity in sharing from your own experiences adds enormous value to our work. We are so glad to be able to count on the always strong alumni network during these difficult times. Alumni have been involved in Beyond Barnard's initiatives in many ways, participating in our alumni chats, a wide range of panels and programs, and serving as mentors to both students and fellow alumni via Barnard Connect. If you haven't already, log on to Barnard Connect at barnardconnect.barnard.edu to get started. If you're interested in being involved in other ways, please reach out to us at beyondbarnard@barnard.edu. As the class of 2021 graduates, your support is ever more valuable. As always, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again in May. Good night.